Tina Greenbaum, welcome back to Speakers Who Get Results.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth. I am so delighted to be here.
Me too. I'm so happy to have you. You were one of the very first people I interviewed when I was dreaming up this podcast. I think you're episode number 3, and the first 2 are me. So you were my first guest on this podcast, and we've both evolved a lot and both staying with the same core values. Before we get started with all my pages of questions I have for you, let me ask you about your dream interview. If you were to interview somebody who's no longer with us, who would it be? What would you ask them? And who should be listening?
Honestly, the first person that comes to mind is my mother.
Okay.
My mother was extremely, extremely wise. And kind of being the daughter of somebody who was never wrong about human nature, that was kind of a scary thing.
Yes.
Because she wasn't. She just could peg people. And she always was encouraging me to be at the highest level that I could be. You be the big one, or, just hang out with people that are going to bring you up. And so these values that she has instilled in me have taken me through an amazing ups and downs of my life and all kinds of places. And many times I used to tell my family members, I said, if you want to know what she was going to say, ask me, because I knew exactly what she was going to say. And I am really her protege.
Wonderful. Well, we are all products of our parents. That's for sure, in good and bad ways, or in, let's say, the helpful and not so helpful ways. So it's wonderful. That's great. I would have loved to have met your mother, especially since you were a prodigy of hers. I would have loved to have met her. So we've been talking a lot about how, well, your company is called Mastery Under Pressure, and you're doing many things in terms of executive consulting and coaching. You were just talking about leadership and your mission. That was really interesting. Talk to me a little bit about your mission and how it has evolved over the years.
Well, honestly, I can't remember if it's 25 or 35 years ago that I wrote this mission statement. And it's about being a catalyst, that I am that catalyst that will help you to ignite that imagination of yours, to imagine things that you absolutely never thought that was possible. And every couple of years I reread it and it's still there.
Wow, that's amazing that you have a mission statement that's been consistent all this time. And you've certainly been a catalyst for me. I have taken your course, Mastery Under Pressure, and learned a lot. So, and I still have your voice in the back of my head from time to time when I'm freaking out. And, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, and often I have you in the back of my head helping me to calm down. Before we go to overwhelm and calming down, talk to me about a little bit more about what actually is a catalyst?
Well, when we looked up the word catalyst, has a Greek origin, and it means dissolve. And you might wonder what are the two things?
Dissolve, okay.
And the way that I think of that is the work that I do actually is work of transformation. And it's a process of dissolving a lot of the layers that we have taken on to protect ourselves over time, so that they dissolve and we make space for the real you. People think about transformation, a lot of times they're going to think that they're going to turn into somebody else, and that's absolutely not true. You're going to turn into yourself. The one that is less encumbered by a lot of these things that you have put on over the years. The energetic armor is kind of what we call it.
Mhm. So actually just being more you. Certainly, it's quite true. You know, we've all had dreams of the magic wand that is going to make us into a better person, you know, or a thinner person. It was like my whole life. I'm just like, just lose another 20 pounds. I'd be it, but I'm not willing to do the work that the work involved in making it happen, especially not after a year and a half of pandemic where no one has to see what size pants I'm wearing. So when we're talking about being a catalyst, certainly as a leader, you want to be a catalyst for your people and for your company. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So in order to help other people lift themselves up, we have to do it ourselves. Matter of fact, a couple of years ago, I moved out here from New York to California, and I was doing a lot of work and I was working really hard, but I felt like I was treading water. I wasn't making the money that I thought that I could or should. And so I had to have a conversation with myself one day. And I said, Tina, you have to up level yourself.
Mm.
And that became for me a mantra. And then I started to go around and get some real help on what am I missing? Because we all have blind spots. And I always say that everybody else knows your blind spots. Know your own too. And by the willingness to ask for help, number one, and number two, to be coachable, really taking it in, not from everybody, but the people that I learned to trust, and then making those sometimes hard changes, but constantly up leveling myself to the place where I've been doing this for 38 years. And then I started to say to myself, well, silently, many times in my head, how many years have you been doing what you're doing? Well, maybe 2 or 3. Well, God, I am an expert at what I do. Why don't I act like it?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started to, and it comes, I think of a lot of things from kind of the body. And if you've ever seen Amy Cuddy's power pose,
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of pulling your energy up and you're standing up straight and you're standing up tall. And I think of the mountain pose in yoga, and to come from that place. And as I started to incorporate more and more and more of that, I began to own that wisdom that I've inherited and give it in a way that hopefully people can hear. But it changed my life. It changed this level of where I am at this moment.
So if a leader is a catalyst, I think of a catalyst, someone it's a change agent.
Yes.
There's a bit of an idea that's tickling the back of my head about a catalyst enabling others. How do you make sure that you are also recognized for having done that? Because certainly you and I have both seen so many people who give and give and give and give, and they give so much they erase themselves from the picture. And so people forget that it was Tina and Elizabeth who made this happen. And they just say, oh, here's this wonderful change, but they forget who was behind it.
That's a really great question, because spiritually, the best gives are the ones that nobody knows who gave. The anonymous gift is the highest level of giving. And at the same time, though, you bring up a really important thing, because we're talking about boundaries.
Yes.
It's not even so much being recognized. I don't have to worry about being recognized as something like I'm doing this so that you're going to remember me. No, I'm going to be me, and I'm going to give me in the best way that I know how. And if what I'm saying resonates with you, you're going to remember me. Okay, but the important thing is when we give and give and give, we really have to look at, so why are we giving? What's, is it from the heart? Is it a real gift? Or is it I'm giving to you because I'm waiting to receive?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't go over so well. Are we saying yes to things that will then put us into overwhelm because we only have so many hours in a day?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's exempt. And how I use my time and how I use it wisely is critically important. And if I'm giving it all away, I have nothing left. I have
Mm-hmm.
nothing for me, and I have nothing left for my family, and I have nothing left actually for my clients. So there's a lot of stuff going on in there. Yeah.
And certainly overwhelm can be a part of that. When there are, not only are we giving, people are asking, there are all these demands,
Mm-hmm.
and learning how to set boundaries there. I know you've talked about prioritizing, and I remember this from taking your course several years ago about choosing the priorities and prioritizing yourself without being selfish.
Correct.
Or feeling selfish.
Correct. So let's look at it. If you give, and there is nothing left for you, you will, I can promise you, at some point this giving will turn into resentment.
Mm-hmm.
I call it my red flag of resentment.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as it starts to show up, it means I'm giving more. I want something more for you than you actually even wanted for yourself. And so my giving matches yours. My effort matches yours. And I did this with my children. I do this with my clients. If they come in and well, I don't know what did we talk about last week, and I can't remember, and I couldn't possibly get to it. All these excuses. Well, I'm just going to sit back a little bit. And why should my effort be greater than your effort? You have to want it as much as I want it for you.
Actually, I think what I wanted to say is now coming to me is, let's talk about serving rather than giving, and servant leadership.
That's right.
Because as a leader, again, you don't want to give everything away, but you do want to be serving in a way that is serving your company, serving your organization, and serving your people. One of the things that I find a lot with a lot of my clients are women, especially, who give a lot and have gotten to as far as they can through skill and ability. But the transition from that to being vice president or C-level means you've got to let go of some of the things you were doing and look from a higher level. Talk a little bit about serving versus giving, or serving as a part of giving, or giving as a part of serving. I don't have a great phrase for that, but I bet you do.
I don't know, but I understand. So this is the way I kind of think about it. And I talk about this actually in my Confident Negotiator course. Because a lot of times we give away things that we don't necessarily want to, but we feel intimidated, or we feel desperate, or we feel like there's some other thing that we're going to miss out on if we don't say yes. There's a whole bunch of psychological things that happen. I like to pay attention to what's happening inside of me. This is the key. This is the key to all of everything that you're asking and everything that we're talking about. How do I know when I'm going into overwhelm? How do I know when I'm giving too much? There's a signal that comes from within. So I have to pay attention to me and those signals. That's my intuition. That's my feeling that goes, I don't want to, I can't do that. It's too much. There are times where I feel like I'm full up, just full with time, with clients and things and commitments. And then somebody comes along my way and I feel called to help that person. I can't describe to you who, when, where, what, how, It just is a feeling like I feel called. Tell me the same person could tell me the same story, and it may not show up for me in the same way. I will make space for that person. I just will. I will move something else so that I can serve in that way. And at the same time, I might have to, limit the amount of time that I spend or whatever, but it becomes my choice. It's a choice. And it's something that I feel like I have to, externally have to. It feels like maybe I have to from my insides. And that's when I think about servant leadership and think about the people that I want to serve and the people that I care about. And I have a small team. I don't have a big company, but I have a small team, and making sure that everybody feels appreciated and they feel like they're being well paid enough. And if they're not being well paid, then they will be well paid when this next thing happens, but always keeping them in mind. And the number one thing that people want more than anything, Elizabeth, is they want to be heard.
Absolutely.
And they want to be heard. And so we can give, even when I don't have a lot of money to give, my time, my caring, that phone call. There's a guy in my network who we had a meeting, and his wife, he wrote back, he had to cancel the meeting at the last minute. His wife is in the hospital. And then I checked back a little while later. Well, she'll be in for another 2 weeks. And then maybe a week will go by and I'll check again. I don't need a return. I don't need anything. I just want him to know that I'm thinking about him. That's giving. Doesn't have to be, hours and hours and hours and thousands of dollars.
When you are responsible for a lot of people and for in a large organization, how do you find the boundary? Let's talk about the leadership part of servant leadership. Where does that come in?
It all comes from the top.
Okay.
From the top. So wherever one is in your company, whether you're at the top of the company or down below, or you got people above you or people below you, it's still, you are serving other people. So number one, you have to be a good delegator. You have to be, you have to have, you have to be on the same page, the same values. And if everybody has the same value, and that's not easy to do because we're all different people and we come from all different backgrounds. But if you remember the most basic things, people want to be heard. They want autonomy. They want a sense of control. They want to feel like they have a purpose, that it's their purpose, not only your purpose. That we show up when we feel intrinsically motivated, not external. So it's, again, it's coming from the inside. I'm going to do this for you, Elizabeth, because I love you and I care about you, or I'm worried about you, or you've got a sick kid at home, so I'm going to jump in and I'm going to do a little extra today. So we want to care about other people. We want to challenge in our work that's not so challenging that we can't do it. And I talk a lot about our nervous system and not asking more than your nervous system can allow. Okay? And we want enough of a challenge that we feel like we're being challenged. So there's certain elements in employee satisfaction that if you as the manager are aware of these elements, you will incorporate them in some way, shape, form within your company. This is the message that you give down. I belong to an organization where they talk about their values over and over again: reciprocity and reach and respect. And they say it at every meeting. And that and the people that they draw in are people who have those values. So that sort of answer your question.
Yeah, actually the thing I realized that we haven't said, because you and I take it for granted, is servant leadership is leadership that's going to benefit everybody, not leadership that's just going to benefit you. Correct. So it's not just me. It's me leading, maybe driving this train or helping to drive this train, but very aware of everybody who's participating.
That's right. So I have a client who is a CTO of a company. He has about 100 and some people below him.
Mhm.
And I said, what is the most challenging part of your job? And he said, it's not the technical part. He said, that's easy. I got all these people who are really smarter than me, and they can answer these questions. It's the people part.
Yeah.
That's why he's working with me. He said, I want to become I am a student of human nature. And I
Mhm.
learn the things so that I can be that leader that everybody feels like they can come to. And it's,
Mhm.
and that I'm not a pushover, and that I'm, am I strong enough on this? Am I understanding enough over here? Because employees today are requiring a lot from their leaders. They want them to be authentic. They want them to be visible. They want them to be caring. And we didn't get our MBAs, with these elements of how to be a coach.
Yeah. It's the one thing that every single company has in common is people.
That's right.
Managing the people. I was thinking about this just in terms of how you show up confidently. I've been thinking a lot about executive presence, and especially for women, often they'll say before you get to C-level, executive presence can be a shorthand for, we don't want to promote you. We don't quite know why. We think it's because you're a girl, but we don't have a good reason. So we just say you don't have enough executive presence. It's one of those nebulous things.
Right.
But if you show up as confident, you have this great program called the Confident Negotiator. Talk a little bit about that and how you could use that, how that confidence translates into executive presence.
Yes. So again, it comes back to what's between you and how you handle yourself and how you handle actually your own energy.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is energy. And it's not even time management, it's energetic management. And when you have executive presence, again, I'm going to go back to I said the word, and all of a sudden I straightened up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting, kind of straighter in my chair, and my back is straighter. And I'm looking, well, right now I'm looking at you as opposed to just looking at the camera, which doesn't feel very personal. But it's how do I hold my body?
Yes.
Hold my energy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've heard of, Tai Chi, yoga, Qigong, any of the martial arts, karate, the energy comes from your center. It's called, in karate, it's called the Tantien, and it's your power center. And we really want to get in touch with that power center before we even walk into a room. You and I just sat here a couple of minutes before we started to speak, and you took a nice deep breath, and I took a nice deep breath, and we got ourselves just grounded and present so that we could think clearly. So,
Yes.
right. So my whole Mastery Under Pressure program is all about that. It's all about, so let's imagine that you have, it's called a window of tolerance. This is your nervous system's tolerance for stress. Here comes the stress. And as long as I'm in my window, I'm good. You ask me what one, I can think clearly, we're together, we're communicating. But if you ask me something or put so much pressure on me, or I put pressure on myself, I'm going to get to the top of my nervous system's capacity for stress. And then I'm going to initiate that stress response. That stress response comes nervousness, anxiety, sometimes tingling. But most importantly for us in this conversation, we don't think clearly.
Right.
Brain goes offline, literally.
Yeah. Yep.
Where was I? What was I thinking? and then, oh my God, they're not paying attention to me. And then we start to fill it with a lot of negative thoughts. So the whole process of mastering under pressure is really expanding our tolerance for stress. So here it comes, all kinds of stuff, shit hits the fan, everything is kind of going haywire, but I'm grounded. And great leaders are grounded, and they can see what's happening. They can see the whole landscape way before most of the other people can see it. They can anticipate the next thing that's happening.
One of the things I love about that, one of the ways I like to think of that, is connecting to the power of Mother Earth below me and getting earth energy coming up through my feet into my center, and then connecting to the power of inspiration above me, and connecting to the energy of, let's say, the universe, and so that in some ways I am a bead on a string.
Yes.
I'm a pipe where the energy, the inspiration is coming from above and the groundedness is coming from below, and it's between the two of them. I'm right there at the center. So then I can send that that energy out to the people I'm trying to reach.
From your heart.
From my heart, exactly. From my heart. As those of you who are just listening, I was just automatically having the hands go out from the heart, sending the energy out. You mentioned, to be curious, this reminds me of a conversation we had a couple of weeks ago, where you mentioned a client you had who resented taking 5 minutes off to meditate. Whatever happened to him?
Well, it's funny. He's in a group of 12 people. And again, people are all over the place in terms of self-care and, this whole idea of what meditation and breathing. And I do my best to bring it down to the neuroscience. So you know that it's not woo-woo. It's not, something that's kind of out there. It's actually quite proven what the breathing and the meditation does. And so in the beginning, the first week, he said, I don't even make time for lunch. I can't even talk to you about this. Okay. So, well, if you could, what would you do? And he said, well, I'd probably make 5 minutes to sit down and meditate. And he said, I have a watch and I could set my watch and I'll do it. Okay, so the next week he comes back and he said, I did my 5 minutes every day and I'm pissed off that it took away from all the other things that I needed to do. So then that gave us an opportunity to really talk about choice and priority and why bother? Why do this?
Yeah.
Okay, if you don't, with just going back to my conversation around stress, 95% of illnesses are stress related. And we get that nervous system going, we get the cortisol going, and over time that knocks down our immune system, and over time, depending where your vulnerability is, that's where the illness is going to show up. So maybe that could be a reason. Maybe you've got kids. How about focusing on your children and being able to be present for your kids? So we talked about a bunch of other possibilities as to why this might be a good idea. So the next week he comes back and he said, I did it and I liked it and I'm going to do it again.
Oh, good.
Great. And the next week he sends me a note. He said, I won't be at the class tonight because I have hockey that I haven't done in 8 months. And you talk about taking care of myself. And I'm going to go play hockey.
Oh, good. Lovely. That's lovely. That's a great story. That's a great story. I think that would be a good story to end on. I know I want to ask you more about the confident negotiator, but I think I will do that in a separate interview because, I'm going to have you back. I have lots of times where I call up Tina and say, Tina will know what to say. As how do we find out more
Okay.
about how to learn more from you?
So I have a program. It's called Mastery Under Pressure. That is really kind of the umbrella of everything that I do. I have a quiz that you can take. It's masteryunderpressure.net. And you
Mm-hmm.
where you are on these skills of peak performance, which hopefully will lead to a state of flow. So we started anxiety at one level and flow at the other. And that's kind of where we're going. So you can masteryunderpressure.net, and my website is masteryunderpressure.com. And I have a book, which is called Mastery Under Pressure.
It's a good book too. I could highly recommend it. Tina Greenbaum, thank you so much for being a guest again on Speakers Who Get Results. You're one of my favorite people, and I just love being able to having you share your wisdom with my listeners.
Thank you.
This has been Speakers Who Get Results, the podcast. And let me remind you before we say goodbye that if you're curious about how your presentation skills are doing, you can take my quiz at speakforresultsquiz.com. That's www.speakforresultsquiz.com. And that's where you can see where your presentation skills are strong and where perhaps a little bit of support could get you the results that you're looking for. Thank you so much, Keith Greenbaum, for having been a guest here.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
And this has been Elizabeth Bachman. I'll see you on the next one.